Hey everybody, we are here once again, hanging and banging. Artist on Lockdown is Thursday night, as we do every Thursday night. We talk about all the things happening in the rock and roll world, and we have legends and icons on the air. And tonight is going to be, oh my gosh, it might be a 5 or 6 hour extended presentation tonight, because we got a lot of people, a lot of legends, a lot of icons on this show. And we're going to be talking about one thing. That's right, January 20th of this year, the world, the rock and roll world, the all-encompassing world lost a legend and an icon in and of himself, Meatloaf, as you all know. And he's just one of those guys that touched so many people's lives. All of us were growing up, and we've got several people that are very, very, very close with Meatloaf. We're lucky tonight to have these folks on. We'll be talking all about intimate stories behind the scenes about what it was like to hang out with a guy such as Meatloaf. Before we do, let's bring my partners, my brothers on, talk about legends and icons. You know him from Dio, you know him from Black Sabbath, Vinny Appice. Come on, brother. There you are.
Hey, is this a 2-hour show?
I hope it's only 2 hours. I really do.
Because I got to go to bed.
Come on. Hey, you don't go to bed early. You're a rocker. It's 6 o'clock. No, where are you? You're in Florida.
Actually, I got to leave for the airport at 5 in the morning. So.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I'll rush everybody.
Okay.
Anyway, we got a lot to go.
Show.
It's gonna be a great show tonight. I'm very excited about it. So let's bring our big brother. You know him from Vanilla Fudge, you know Rod Stewart, Jeff Beckett, so many other incarnations. Carmine Appice.
And look at my background. Where am I?
You're in the production office.
I'm in the entertainer director's office in the Hard Rock. My buddy Dave Gold. Dave, say hi.
Hi, Dave.
There's Dave.
What's up, brother?
Hey, Dave.
So we're here to see. We're going to see Deep Purple and Blue Oyster Cult tonight, with me and my good friend Nico. Go ahead, Vinny.
They're dating tonight. It's a special anniversary date.
Bust my balls, God. Bust my balls.
I know. You got the poster like I heart Nico in the audience. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
What a couple. What a couple.
What a couple of what? Hey guys, you know what? First of all, it's been an incredible week. We filmed a couple of episodes this week, so everyone's just loving this freaking hanging and banging thing. But tonight is a very special show. You know, we've been doing this now. This is our 78th episode, and been doing it for a long time. Obviously, going on 2 years, or about 2 years. And we've lost. We've had to go through some deep losses, Eddie Van Halen, a few others that have happened the last couple of years. Really tough. But, you know, Meatloaf was one of those guys that really touched all of us. And I mean, a few words, I understand. I never had the opportunity to meet him, but really made an impression on so many people, especially in the rock and roll world. Did you guys have any experience with Meatloaf specifically?
Not really. No, I met him a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I met him a few times, but never really hung out a lot with him, you know.
I never met him. I never even met him anyway. So
yeah.
But I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that yes. Well, that's the thing. He's one of those guys that's really just almost like an enigma, because he was known by everybody and so many. He, as I said, touched so many lives, but not close to a lot of people. But the people that he was close to, many of them on our show tonight. So what I'm going to do is, Ben, we're just going to keep bringing them on. I'd like to bring everybody on so we get this kind of this vocal jam going, this conversation jam going. So first, you know him. I first met him obviously in his his years now with Blue Oyster Cult. He's been by the Arcade, I don't know, 50, 100 times, something like that. A really great guy, you know, from Utopia. Set Me Free, which is interesting because we got a couple Set Me Frees on this show. Let's bring Kasim Sulton on.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Kasim.
Yes.
Hi, Ron. Hi, Carmine. Hi, Vinny.
I did. So
Good
I'm going
to
to
see
see
you
your
guys.
boys tonight.
Yeah,
I
you
just
too.
talked to
You
Eric.
too.
He told me he lives around the corner from me now.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, he lives like 5 minutes from my house. So I'm going to get
He's
together with him. And
he's a real snowbird. He half the year he's up here in Long Island, and half the year he's down there by you.
yeah, well, I'm worse. I'm just down here.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a great show
we
because
have the
we
place
got,
in New York, but you know, it's like we never go there. I'm going there next month to rehearse with Cactus and do some Cactus shows. But
oh, how cool! That's great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Good,
we're going to
good.
play the Iridium on the 14th.
Oh, that's cool.
February.
14th
And
of
then we're
February.
playing you, and we're doing Ron in June.
Yep. After he's done doing Nico, apparently. Yeah. All right, so
Ron,
we are. Let's just keep it rolling. We got a lot of people.
Oh boy,
go.
That's gonna last a long time, Karma. I'm sorry. You think your brother's gonna let that one go? Are you kidding me?
No,
but I started.
no.
I started it, so it's perfect.
I know. Yeah. Also, you know this young man. I tell you what. You talk about a range of music. This guy's been in so many projects, so many bands. And you talk about a range of music from Michael Bolton to Kiss. Well, he's been in them all. Grand Funk Railroad, of course, and then his years with Meatloaf. We'll talk about Bruce Kulick. Let's bring on Bruce.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, dude.
All right.
Hey, Bruce.
This is so much.
This is going to be fun. Man. I know who's backstage, and I'm very excited. Okay.
Oh, me too.
So there's lots to talk about. And Kasim, great to see you, of course, and just about everybody
Bruce.
here I've worked with or wanted to work with, you know, and I'm very excited. And I wanted to look at the loss of Meatloaf as a celebration of music, and of course it's sad for him, you know, to be gone. I still think he probably had much more that he wanted to do and could have done, but the legacy that he has and these guests that you have on this show is going to be really memorable and a fitting tribute to the man.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very, very excited.
Well
we're going to keep it rocking, guys. I'd like to bring on another young man who's I'm very excited. Besides so many other reasons, he is continuing the legacy of Meatloaf and the Neverland Band, Neverland Express Band. Mark Crook, Paul Rather. Where's Paul? There he is. There's Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, cool. He is. The project is backed, and you keep on rocking, and you're actually going to be at February 24th at the Arcade Theater. So, I mean, in Des Plaines, in Chicago area. We're excited to have you guys there. And you're keeping the legacy going, man. And we love you.
Thank you. Yes. Trying to. Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. Actually,
so
I'm here.
Is that a tribute? Is that a tribute act?
No, it's not.
That's the guys, man.
Yeah, I wouldn't say tribute. We're just celebrating Meatloaf.
That's great. That's right.
Yeah.
So what, Paul?
I'm sorry. Kasim was the one that called me about joining Meatloaf. He was the first phone call I received.
Did you get the check?
Not more importantly, did you cash it?
Actually, yeah, I'm actually very happy with the money I've made with Meatloaf, to be honest with you.
Paul, are you working with that? Is it Caleb? Is the singer? That guy is I could not believe it when I met him backstage at a Queen show, and I was just like, "Oh, please let me know when you're going to perform." You know?
Yeah, I think that was at Vegas, right, Bruce?
Yes.
You and I were talking backstage.
Yes.
You know, what's funny is, Caleb is actually with Eric Singer this very second.
Oh, at that charity event that they're
Palm
doing,
Springs,
right? Tommy. Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Small world, guys.
I'm looking at Eric Singer on the wall here.
Oh, that's weirder. That's
small world, man.
Okay.
Small world. All right, let's keep it going, guys. We're gonna bring in a couple ladies I'm very excited about. Karla DeVito performed so much with Meatloaf. Get out of hell.
Love
Hey,
it.
everybody.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Bruce. Hi, Paul.
Hi.
Hi, kids.
Is there a
Hi.
better photo, that social media post I did where I grabbed that shot of I'm holding a bottle of wine. That's not like me. And you and Meat and I, and it's such a classic shot. I took your thumbnail for this show and then added in Karla, me, and Meat. And she loved it, of course.
It's a great photo.
Great to see you, Karla. Great to see you.
Great to see you too.
Thanks.
Great to see you all. Great to see everybody. Paul, all you
so
guys.
Nice to have you, Karla. Thank you so much. We got
Happy to be here.
We got 2 more guests. It's still coming. We'll probably get to the second hour before we actually do the interviews. But the next person, I'll tell you what, we all grew up, there's White Snake videos that we got through puberty with, or there's other things we got through puberty with. But if you didn't go through puberty vocally with the audio on Paradise by the Dashboard Light, I mean, my God, the vocals on that, from the female vocals especially, I got to say personally, I owe her a great debt of gratitude. Let's bring Ellen Foley on. Thank you so much for being here,
Ellen.
Hello, boys.
Hey.
Hi, Ellen.
Ron, so you're telling me you have reached puberty? That's
no,
happened
that's
already?
the interesting thing. That's when it began. But these guys who know me know that I have yet. I will be 60 coming up this month. And
I'll vouch for that.
And I've got a growth spurt coming, they tell me. So I'm excited.
Okay, vertically.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Vertically. Okay, good.
Hell yeah. So thank you for joining us, ladies. I'm going to...
Yay, Foley.
I know. And you guys did a song together. We're going to talk about the album. I can't wait to talk about that. Our last guest I'd like to introduce, you talk about legends, you talk about icons. This guy's been a guest on our show several times. He's been at my theaters also in Chicago. It's obviously all over the world. But he also was the producer of the 5th selling record album in record history, over 43 million albums. This is a guy who not only produced it, he performed on it, but also it's an interesting story we're going to get to about how it almost didn't happen, or he didn't really take it very seriously. We're going to talk about that. But ladies and gentlemen, a standing ovation for Mr. Todd Rundgren.
Toddy!
You're not standing.
We're not worthy.
Standing.
Yes, I am, Todd. Yes, I am. Unfortunately.
I'm bowing. Is bowing okay?
Yes, that's what. All right, count of 3, everybody.
Ron is standing, but he's so short. It looks like he's sitting.
I'm standing, Todd. But you know what, everybody? Look at this. Carmine, you're loving this. I know you are.
I love it.
But let's do this, guys. We got, we could spend the entire hour with each and every one of you, actually, besides your own careers and the perspectives on Meat. And it's just, again, we all thank you so much because you all had such unique relationships with Meatloaf. And we like to hear all about it. Let's start. I'm not going to go down the line on every question, but the first question because I think it's important that we talk about how you specifically met Meat and started with his world. And actually, I'm going to start. Todd, I want to do you last because I want to hear about the whole bat thing because it's really an amazing.
Good. I'm muting myself.
Yes. But actually, let's talk to Paul. Paul, let's talk to you first. I believe it was about 2002 that you started getting into the ball game with Meatloaf.
Correct. I first met Meatloaf in 1999. I was working with Anthrax at that time, and we were touring with Motley Crue. And Pearl, Meat's daughter, was a backup singer, and we were at the Universal Amphitheater in LA, and Meat was backstage. And I was really excited to meet him. That's the first time I met him. Years later, I got a phone call from Kasim Sulton. It was really funny. I'll never forget it. It was a block call. I pick it up. Hey, Paul, this is Kasim Sulton. I'm like, can we swear in this thing? I don't know if we're allowed to curse.
Yeah.
Why not?
No, I was like, get the fuck out of here.
You can't say out of here.
It was Kasim Sulton. Yes, so Kasim called me in 2002 asking if I'd be interested in auditioning for Meatloaf. And obviously, it was Pearl that put, my name in Kasim's ear. Yeah, that's why I'm here right now.
That's awesome, man. So Kasim, was it the because you had the Blue Oyster Cult thing happening at the time, or was that
No. I was
afterwards, right?
I was Meat. Yeah, I was Meat's MD at the time. I was his musical director from '98 until 2011.
And how did you get? How did I? That's a freaking gig and a half. How does that happen?
Well, I'm the first. When I was living in Woodstock, I was living with Roger Powell, the keyboard player for Utopia. We were sharing a house in Woodstock. The phone rang. It was Todd. He said, would you like to play bass on a record that I'm producing? I said, yeah, who is it? He said, it's a guy named Meatloaf. And I said, all right, please don't kid around. Tell me who it is. And he got angry with me. And he said, just be at the studio tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and hung up the phone. And
that sounds like Todd.
Yeah. And then that's when I went to the accountant's office where the rehearsals were. Up in Bearsville, and I met Ellen, Jim, Meatloaf, and Jim Steinman, Meatloaf, and Rory Dodd. And they performed the entire record live for myself, Todd, Roy Bittan, and Max Weinberg.
Max Weinberg, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was Max on the record? Max played drums?
Max played drums on the entire record, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. We didn't even know that. That's amazing. That's it. How about you, Bruce? How did this whole thing happen with you and Meatloaf?
You know, my brother, and as you all know, we lost Bob in 2020.
Bob, yeah.
Yep. And that's how I was introduced to Meatloaf. And it was clearly just him, we were in New York, and I know Bob and I always wanted to do a brothers or, a guitarist, the two guys, just like Hunter and Wagner, Alice Cooper and Lou Reed, and
Vinny
he heard about
Carmine.
Yeah, exactly. It's the brothers thing. So he knew about it. I was the 4-year younger guy, and I didn't know anything. But he brought us in to the auditions. It was somewhere in Manhattan, and I don't know. I don't really remember if I met Meat first, but I know Joe Stefko was there. Joe, Karla, of course, we all love Joe. We love Joe, and I know that he really was excited about Bob and I playing dual lead guitar. I loved what you did, Todd, on the record, lead guitar wise, and I'm a huge fan of yours. But Bob is my brother's kind of style was not to learn somebody else's riffs. So enter the younger brother who will do that, okay? And that's what I did. And I remember Sonnenberg, the manager. Maybe you want to mention him or not, but I just did. But anyway, he was very happy with that, knowing that I was learning Todd's signature riffs for the important stuff. And then, of course, the live band, that touring band, really, and Karla knows this for sure, we really did adapt the album and bring it up a level. We did even more. And what can I say? The material was great. The production on the album was great. And now how do you actually even bring this up a level to perform live when you have a 300+ pound guy in a tuxedo with the beautiful Karla performing in front, and what can I say? I think we did it in spades, and it was a fantastic year of my life. It wasn't easy, and Karla knows that. It was women and children and Bruce first, okay, to bail, okay? Absolutely, okay? My brother would get into it sometimes with me, and it wasn't pretty, but look, I mean, I got to play on Saturday Night Live. I got to tour the world. I got to play these arenas. I got to play with you, Todd. That was a thrill. Twice. You came up and played with us on some of the arenas. First time wasn't so good. Second time was amazing, okay? I think you borrowed my Stratocaster or something, and you weren't comfortable on the gear next time you came with your equipment, okay? But it was a life-changing experience for me that I think I wouldn't have been as successful to be in Kiss and survive 12 years with Gene and Paul if I didn't do Meatloaf, okay?
Yeah.
So I just got to thank
that
Todd
toughened you up.
Yeah, it absolutely did. It taught me so much, the dynamics, the how to travel with a band, what to do, and what can I say? It was actually magic. It really was. Bob and I were terrific on stage. Karla, you were so amazing, and Ellen, I always respected you and knew you were this legendary girl on the record. But I think you only maybe you came up once, or I met you once. It wasn't that connection, but Karla was able to embody the person that was willing to be mauled by, Meatloaf every night.
Hey. She's a better man than I.
Yeah, and I have to admit, this Broadway thing or this vision that Steinman had was quite creative and something very, very grandiose that I wasn't really used to from anything else I did prior to that. So what an amazing experience for me. And I cannot believe how much attention Meatloaf has gotten. And I think he deserves all of it. And I've been loving talking about it and sharing this time with you guys.
And then some, right? Well, first of all,
absolutely.
God bless Bob. Here's to him greatly missed, of course.
Yes.
Absolutely. Karla, you're from Mokina, Illinois. I'm looking out. I'm near O'Hare. I'm looking out the window, and I can see Mokina.
That is so funny. Yes, I'm like,
Close.
one other thing, Exene Cervenka from X, she was the baby sister of my best friend in Mokina. She was a White Sox fan and a tomboy, and so there must have been something in the water in Mokina. That's all I can say. So
well, how did that amazing power voice that you have, how did that get involved with that amazing power dude called Meatloaf?
It's a long story. I'm trying to make it short. There's Meatloaf and Steinman. I think it was Jim Steinman adored the band that I was in. It was called Orchestra Luna 2 or Luna 2. We would come down from Boston and play CBGBs, and
Sure.
Steinman just loved the band. So he had asked us. His guide asked us to work on Neverland, which Ellen was radiant in at the Washington DC. It was before Bad Out of Hell came out, so I didn't meet any of these guys till '77. The record had been in a can since I don't know how long. Ask Todd and Ellen, they'll know. But so from that, I did that in the spring of '77. We were like just the band for this musical, which was basically a musical. Bad Out of Hell, Neverland is what it was called, and I got a phone call. It's sometime in the summer. We had this giant show, and that's where I met Meatloaf for the first time. Our band played at Ellis Tully Hall. It was like this crazy vaudeville rock punk jazz. I mean, it was nuts. 8 people. It was really fun. In one thing I played. Well, forget it. Okay, long story.
We'll get it.
Yeah, really too long. But bottom line is, I get a call from Jim Steinman. I was living in a house. I was living in a house in Boston with my band, and he said, "Do you want to come down, and be the female person? Wow. You be the female singer in Meatloaf." And that's Jim, right? In that last photo, it was Jim. That's not Jim there. That's me.
Yeah.
Jim's at that piano somewhere. So I came down and kind of that was that with $35 in my pocket, slept on the sofa with a couple of my pals, and that's how I joined Meatloaf. And I learned a lot, just like Bruce said. I mean, it was such an incredible experience with Jim and me together. It was like being shot out of a cannon because we played these small, and I'm sorry that I have all these pictures. I'm sorry, they asked for photos, people. What can I say?
No, I love it. Are you kidding? Look at that. And that's what he was talking about, literally being mauled by this 300-pound guy. I mean, look where his hands were. I mean, it's amazing.
Hey, oh, thank you, darling. But anyway, but long story short, it was a theater piece. I'm an actor. I was an actor first before I was a rock and roll singer. It's a theater piece. Oh, wow. We really created, like Bruce said, it was like this live theater piece, you know. And
well, your background in Broadway kind of add to this whole picture, right?
Yeah, I did like Godspell in Chicago at the Studebaker Theater. That was my first equity gig. But bottom line is, working with Meatloaf was an intense, insane, fabulous experience. And Jim Steinman, you know, being among these two completely different but insanely strong guys, it was really, really wonderful. It was a great experience for me, and that's how I got a record deal and la-di-da, you know, all this other stuff. So
many amazing nights you must have. Ellen, you know, again, like I said before, I mean, one of the most erotic rock presentations, I gotta say, was on that song. And I mean, you talk about iconic songs. I mean, I don't even know what to ask. Like, how did that all happen? I mean, it's just such an iconic thing.
How did it happen? Well, I was around Meat and Jim when Jim was writing the songs. We were in the bus and truck, or actually we drove around the country in a little blue van doing the National Lampoon show. And Meat was in it, and I was in it. We were both in it as actors. And Jim came along, and he was, you know, he played the piano. He was the whole band. So anybody who saw Steinman play would know he could be the whole band because he played very hard
Sure.
and very loud. So he would, everywhere we would go, he would find a piano, and he was writing the Bat Out of Hell songs. And, I was there during the evolution of it. And, this was a long time ago. You can't expect me. I don't know. All these other people are making things up as if they actually remember this. But yeah, so, he was writing the songs, and I was in the right place at the right time. He wrote Paradise.
With the right voice. Let me
Thank
just
you.
say, with the right voice.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So we've got 1977. It comes out again, one of the biggest albums and not just rock and music history. And please take us down the road, Todd, about your involvement. And I heard the story, or I heard a reference to a story about the fact that I'm not sure if I got it right. I don't know if you actually didn't take it as seriously as you probably should have at first, or you thought it was going to be kind of like a spoof to a Springsteen album or something like that.
I took it exactly as seriously as it needed to be. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been a fucking hit record.
Well said.
What's the spoof thing? What's
Tell
the
it.
spoof situation?
They played this. They auditioned. Ellen and Meat and Rory and Jim auditioned for everybody in the business. They did that performance, I don't know how many times, before a record ever got made out of it. That Paradise by the Dashboard Light thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, immediately I thought, I put two things together. One was it had been recently that Bruce Springsteen was on the cover of Time magazine being declared the savior of rock and roll.
Yeah.
The Jesus of rock and roll, here he comes. Bruce Springsteen. And what's he singing about? Motorcycles, leather jackets, switchblades, lonely, rebel without a cause. It's back in the 50s again. It's like, to me, Springsteen's whole thing was a spoof, and then when I saw Meatloaf, I said, this is a spoof of a spoof. And that's the only way to look at it.
Yep.
Oh, Todd.
This is taking Springsteen's thing and just pushing it just so way over the top. And if you don't see that to start with, you're missing the entire point. It's Simon's songs could have been Springsteen songs. They're all about leather jackets and motorcycles and switchblades. And he loves the word night.
Yeah, right.
Reason, he uses the word night in every song and usually rhymes it with knife. And so
that don't rhyme.
It just seems, there's nothing wrong with that, but it just seemed plainly obvious to me when I saw it that the only way it would work is to look at it as a spoof of Bruce Springsteen. And that's what was in my head the entire time the record was being made. And the only way I could justify Steinman's extravagances, like hiring Scooter Rizzuto or a full orchestra, for this total flyer of a record that nobody wants to pay for, by the way.
Yeah, I believe you picked up the tab on that deal.
I had to pick up the tab, We, the way Simon visioned. So I had mentioned this to Steinman, and Steinman bought me a ticket to a Springsteen show. But Steinman always said, like, no, Springsteen, no influence at all on this. Maybe he thought he was influencing Springsteen, but in any case, he said, nah, Springsteen, nothing to do with this, blah 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 blah. And I knew already, this was what was going on. So we hired half of Utopia, and we hired half of the E Street Band because that's what Simon wanted.
Sure.
All the while claiming, nah, it's nothing to do with Springsteen, nothing, none of that. But I want the Springsteen rhythm section. I want Roy Bittan. I want Max Weinberg. And so we hired them, and we rehearsed because the intention was to do, everything I had ever seen of Meatloaf was live. Doing the whole thing, everybody at once, And so I said, we're going to do this record live. I mean, we may not capture the vocals, but the band is going to play it live. There's too much. There's too much rubato, speeding up, slowing down, adapting to the tempo. Some of it unintentional because Max came in used to playing for Bruce, where there's no tempo.
Right.
You know, yeah. Bruce is like always speeding up and slowing down and stuff like that. You know, so it was something of an adjustment to get Max to kind of play the tempo when we needed him to. You know.
Yeah.
Because Meat was not Springsteen. You know, at that point. And the singing that he did was really kind of reference vocals to the tracks while we were recording the tracks. We did the vocals later. So yeah, we're about to go into the studio. We rehearsed for like 10 days because we want to do it all live. And the day before we're to go into the studio, Meatloaf comes to me and says, "I want off my label." He had a label. It was actually, ironically, it was called Utopia Records, a subsidiary of RCA. And I think they had probably started balking at the expense that they were running up on the record and said they weren't going to pay for it. And Meatloaf came to me and said, "I want off my label." And I said, "Well, I'm not your manager. I can't tell you, I can't get involved in that kind of stuff. But you realize, that I won't get paid and the record won't get paid for, if you get off your label." And he said, I'm done with them. So I went to Bearsville and said, "Well, put it on my tab and you'll get right of first refusal when the record is done." And when the record was done, Bearsville turned it down. Warner Brothers, the distributor of Bearsville, turned it down. And then they were on the street trying to shop what essentially was a spoof of Bruce Springsteen.
Well, all we could do is we really, obviously Meatloaf gets the huge props when you talk about Bat Out of Hell, but we owe you a great debt of gratitude, Todd, for producing and just an amazing piece of art.
Yes.
What label was it on?
Cleveland International.
Cleveland International. Steve Popovich.
Woo!
A freaking really old-fashioned record guy. He didn't sign everybody in the world. When he signed Meatloaf, he only had one other artist. I think that was Ian Hunter. And so he had this record, and he just worked it and worked it and worked it and worked it. First two singles went in the toilet. But a bunch of things came together for Meatloaf. One was the relentless touring. The Meatloaf would play anywhere.
We did.
The second was that Steve Popovich did not give up after the second single didn't chart.
That's awesome.
And the third thing was MTV. MTV came online at the same time, and they didn't have a lot of videos to play. And just like regular DJs, they wanted to play the longest record so they go to the roof and get high. So they would play Paradise by the Dashboard Light once an hour on MTV.
I see that.
It was played once an hour. And that's what finally broke it.
Wow.
A combination of those things,
MTV definitely did that. Kaz, I want to ask you, being Meat's MD and being with him so much musically, I don't know that I know or our audience knows just how musical, Meat was involved with that. Did he just grab the microphone and do his thing? But how much did he get involved in the actual musicianship of the whole deal?
Well, I think honestly, I think most of Meat's biggest influence musically was Jim. And I think that he really kind of took a lot of cues from Jim and how Jim worked. So when it came to putting a live show together, Meat wasn't necessarily a really good musician, because he would say, "Well, I want the piano to do something like that, and I want the drums to play something like that. Could you like that?" And
sure.
So he wasn't really a musician, but I think he heard stuff, and but I think he took a big cue from watching and working with Jim for so many years.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Kasim that I don't remember Meatloaf much with the direction of music per se, but much more, maybe more staging with Karla especially, and
absolutely
what could look exciting as a performer. But I must say that Steinman definitely, how about him telling me once, make your guitar sound like a milkshake, okay? not sure what flavor milkshake
Right.
or what a milkshake sounds like on the guitar. And I know Todd could get
Right.
that one, but that's what he wanted from me. Okay.
Well,
so,
Todd, didn't he give you pages and pages of notes about when it came time to mix, about what he wanted stuff to sound like, the food references and stuff like that?
He may have kept those, but I was not inclined to indulge them. Certainly at that point,
of course,
we're at the end. We're at the end of a process I'm paying for.
Right.
At this
I
point,
say what happened.
So Todd,
and he wants an orchestra, for something.
Yeah,
sure.
Did you guys mention how Todd met Meat? I
met him at the audition. At the audition.
I'll never.
Ellen.
So Todd comes in the room. Todd comes in.
We are the oldest. You and me, Ellen, sorry.
Yes.
We are historically the oldest couple here.
Yes, we are, darling. But so
and Kaz.
Todd is back there.
No, he came later.
With his video camera. Todd comes to the audition, and he's back there videoing it. And I'm singing away, and I just see him. I mean, Todd's literally falling out of his chair. He thinks the whole thing is so hysterical. So yeah, I guess you did think it was a joke, Todd.
That's what I was talking about.
He got it. See, that was the difference. All these other we auditioned for every executive in New York, and these guys were terrified. The little executives sitting in with their suit, and Meat in these little folding chairs, and Meat sweating on top of them, and us doing our thing. Ran terrified. And then Todd comes in, and he got it. The same with Popovich. They're the two guys who got it, and made it happen.
But Karla, back me up with this, please. I gotta say,
okay.
Todd, you weren't on the road with us, but you knew that the hard touring and taking every gig and performing helped break the album. But it was the CBS convention, okay?
Absolutely.
And that's when the label got totally into it. Karla, back me up there, right?
I'm backing you up
completely.
completely.
Any MTV yet? There were videos.
No, there was no MTV.
There was no
offense,
MTV
Todd.
in '77.
MTV didn't exist until after we were off the road. It was like
80 something. Yeah.
Truthfully, I was the first live guest on MTV, and that was in support of "Is This a Cool World or What?" which was my first album. So, but the video, which was Ellen's voice and me and Meat, and whatever, that was played everywhere around the world. When we got to Australia, the album was number one based on that. In Holland, one out of every two households owned that album because they had a video show on every night.
How much you think Saturday Night Live performance had to do with the?
We were already popular by then, but that helped. There's no doubt.
That did help. But the old gray whistle test is what really broke the record.
That was it. Yeah, that was the first one.
Mm-hmm. That was Paradise. They let us do the whole thing, which Saturday Night Live was afraid to do. So we did that, and then that broke it wide open in England, and then Europe fell, and Canada had gone nuts. So but
Europe fell.
They fell. Right, like it may fall now.
Mussolini, all that stuff was going on.
Absolutely.
Right now, I just think that
this
we
is
really,
so great. This is so great to hear all this whole story.
Well, Karla and I are going down memory lane. It's crazy.
I know, it's ridiculous.
But everybody
jump in and say on the old gray whistle test. There it is. That's really important. That was like the place to be in the UK to perform in London and I blow your riff. Todd, I go, you blew it. I was like, I nearly wanted to just show me, put a black bag over my head, take me out of the room, shoot me, okay?
Well,
but anyway,
that's just been recently on. As soon as Meatloaf died, they started putting together.
Yes, of course.
I know.
Documentaries. What did I say?
Documentaries out of old documentaries that they had made before.
But the rock blast.
But they played the entire. They played the entire old gray whistle test.
I know.
They did. Oh, cool.
It's amazing.
But I'll tell you, the thing that I noticed already by then, Rory's doing the high notes.
Of course.
Well,
already by then, Rory's doing the high notes.
Hey, Carmine, mute.
Yeah.
Rory has
it
one
wasn't
of the
always
greatest
easy for him with everything going on the road. But I still feel like that convention, they pumped the money in, then all of a sudden we got on the radio and the thing took off like a bat out of hell, okay? And then all of a sudden we're in arenas, and now we're going everywhere. Australia, fat out of hell, he passes out.
Fat out of
the
hell.
Oxygen, she knows. He falls off the stage,
in
and
Ottawa.
we're still performing 2 weeks later in a wheelchair, okay? I mean, talk about being over the top.
For Paradise, I hear he wants to talk. Sir.
Go ahead.
Hey, Carmine,
I'm just saying
mute yourself, Carmine, would you?
What's that?
Would you just mute yourself real quick here so we could? There we go.
No, I was just saying
Toddy?
that the England thing was the most remarkable part about it, because the album didn't leave the English charts for like 20 years.
Correct.
It was on the English chart.
And now it's back on, of course.
The British went for it in a way that's just incomprehensible,
I know.
because they had this whole faux 50s experience. They had their teddies. Remember the teddies and the mods? The teddies would wear the leather jackets and they would ride motor scooters around, because they couldn't afford big bikes and stuff like that. But they considered themselves bikers, And so they had this whole 50s thing that was modeled after the American, rebel, Marlon Brando, Rebel Without a Clue, all that kind of thing. Stuff like James Dean. The English always imagined that they had gone through, this uniquely American experience. And so they had Meatloaf kind of recreated for them in such a vivid way, that they just gobbled it up for years and years and years and years. Yeah. And it didn't matter, that even in the latter years, he would come on, sing 2 songs and leave. They would still buy a ticket to the show. Yeah. It was amazing.
Well, it was because he represented, I think, every man out there. This giant, sweating, huge persona. He wasn't the cute little guy like you were, Todd, or Kasim, or whoever all you guys. He didn't have the, tight pants or. He just went out there and he just laid it all out there. And I guess that's
you got that whole full slab of meat is what you got on stage. No hiding nothing. So we talked about Meat musically. Real dude here. Let's talk about Meat as a performer on stage. I know, Karla, I think, and you'd agree that part of the reason, not only obviously your vocal ability, but you were asked to be part of it because of your Broadway experience, your theatrical experience, because it seemed like that's what the Meatloaf experience was, almost like the Alice Cooper shows. It's a very theatrical experience. Let's talk about Meat on the road. I want to start with Paul and work backwards, because Paul, you were working with them as of late, since, like we said, right after 2002, and we're on the road with them. Tell me Meatloaf on the road as you saw it, and then I'd like to go backwards and how some of the pioneers, their experiences with Meat on the road. Paul?
Yeah, okay. Meatloaf on the road in my tenure was very unpredictable. He'd pass out every night. Every show he was on the ground. And
really?
Yeah, right. I'm sure we've all seen that, right?
But of exhaustion or?
Yeah, absolutely exhaustion.
It was real?
Well, no, I'm sure there was some theater in there. There's some drama in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
He would drop on my. Well, actually, Kasim, when I first came in, Kasim was MD, as he mentioned, and we did. Kasim and I worked together until about 2011, right, Kas?
Mm-hmm.
Is that about right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then from that point, I took over Kasim's position. I had to fill the void there. I wasn't asked to do it. It was a matter of survival, really, because no one would step up. So I stepped up and I got in the hot seat and I just took it and went. And so being a music director for him, it was very challenging. He was a very dynamic personality, difficult at times, also very loving at times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. On tour again, every day, I didn't know what to expect. I would look at his assistant, Frances, when she came on the bus. Depending upon her mood, I knew what we were in for that day.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Karla, how about you? How much of what you guys did on stage was actual choreography versus you feeling each other's space? Oh, I think you're muted. There you go.
Thank you. Well, when I got the gig, here it is. Ellen's great vocal, amazing vocals on the record. It's like, okay, but we have to create a show. I said to Steinman, because Steinman really was kind of I felt in rehearsal, Steinman was like in control of what he was, the music. I felt that way, Bruce. I mean, this may not be how you experienced it, but completely. And it was his vision. It's Steiny. I mean, he's like a genius. So I said to him, so Steinman, because in rehearsal, we never did any of that. We didn't kiss. Right. We didn't want to. I said, so Steinman, so what's going to happen when we get on stage? What's supposed to happen during there in Paradise? And he goes, you'll figure it out when you get up there.
Okay.
That was it. It was it. And then I had studied at Second City with Joe Forsberg. And so
Bill Murray.
That was like, right. We were in the children's theater. Joe Forsberg was running it there. So I felt like that kind of helped me. And the two of us really did click as far
Absolutely.
as you want to call it, as far as that works. But so that the excitement was there. He had, it was like the point of the arrow. He was, it was an arrow and Meat was the point of it. But it was Jim's over everything. I don't know. I felt that way, Bruce. I don't know if you felt that way.
Yeah, no, but there was something about the way the two of you could perform Paradise that was remarkable. And it was a little different every night. And I did really feel that I was part of a impromptu theater experience. Although I think I'm scarred for life from it. I watched a little bit of it on one of the German shows, and I was just like, and my wife Lisa, by the way, this album was like soundtrack of her, childhood, a teenage, knew that record every note. And of course, when we watched it and relived it and saw how you embodied Ellen's voice and what that song is about, it's just genius, the whole thing. And then the performance of it matched the power of the music. And that's very hard to do. Okay. So that's why I'm so proud of what we did. I love the record so much. And I just had a quick question, Todd. When you talked about live, you had to record the record. Your guitar work as well?
Everything.
Wow.
Yeah, we did that record. Todd, it took us about a week and a half to record.
Whoa.
We did a song a day, something like that.
But if you're producing and everything, and then you're live with them, that's great. And then
crazy.
I didn't know.
Maybe that's the magic.
Well, I might have been playing from the control room as well.
Okay.
So.
Wow. So even
probably.
I'm not sure that I recall exactly, but I think I may have been playing from the control room.
Yes,
from the control room. That would make sense.
So that I
genius.
So I could hear everything, kind of in context.
Yeah.
No, I know
the genius
you
of
used to mix
Todd
while
Rundgren,
you were
for
recording. I know that you knew what you would combine things immediately. I heard that, right?
Well, you make decisions. Production sidebar. There's a lot of different styles, but the problem with the evolution of technology is it created more options and people stopped making decisions. So I tend to make decisions while I'm moving it constantly toward a certain place. I'm not just creating more options and then deciding later. I'm constantly moving it toward a certain place.
Got it.
And so if I hear something that sounds right, like an EQ or a reverb or an effect or something like that, I print it.
Just keep it. Yeah.
I agree with that. And I've done that many times. I love this delay. I don't care. You're not supposed to do that till later. No, I know Todd didn't do that with Bad Out of Hell. I swear to you. So thank you. That's good. That's a good technique.
There you go. Feel free to use that excuse, right?
Yes.
Ellen, I mean, so being part of that must have been incredible. I had no idea you did it live, Todd, like that. I mean, that makes it more theatrical. That makes it, that may make the record what it is. I guess it does. So
take Bad Out of Hell itself. How many different tempos are in that song?
Yeah, that was, and we did that live. We did it live. Yeah,
that's crazy. Live end to end. We might patch somebody makes a screw up somewhere in there. We patch the screw up, but otherwise, all live from end to end.
Actually, there was one point, Todd, where you were talking about tempos earlier, and I was getting frustrated as the bass player playing with Max, whose tempo was like all over the place, and I said,
liquid tempo.
I remember saying to him, "You think maybe we should do this with a click?" And he got upset with me and says, "That's why Bruce loves me, because I never finish a song at the same tempo that I started."
I love that.
That's what Vinny does too.
It seemed obvious, actually.
Yeah.
Hell with it.
So let me ask you, Ellen.
I remember
Yes.
being, you talked earlier about trying to deal with the different levels of professionalism. But Steinman and I were in the control room, and I guess maybe we were doing you were doing the track to Paradise, and Steinman and I were giving you all these. Yes, it should be like that moment on the terrace in West Side Story, and you're like, get the fuck out of here. Who are these idiots? Who or what have I gotten myself into? Get the fuck out of here. No, but it's no. Yeah.
Everybody's got an opinion,
Everybody.
Yeah.
So we've got Karla, we've got Ellen, and two obviously amazing voices. But I'm so excited about your relatively new release that you guys have done together. Tell me about that. Fighting Words.
Yes, I did an album. It's called Fighting Words. Came out last summer, and Karla does a duet with me on it called "I'm Just Happy to Be Here." And the guy who writes all my material, the second album we've done together, guy named Paul Foglino. I said, because Karla and I, we really. We hadn't really had a relationship. Right. And, in my mind for years, it's like, that Karla DeVito, because everybody thought that she sang the record. But then, that was way in the past. But she and I both performed at a tribute to Jim at a club in New York. What year was that, Kay?
That was in 2015.
Right. So something just clicked. She and I started talking, and I just fell in love with her. And so I said to Paul, I said, I would love for Karla to sing, and it's I had my little business hat on too, because I'm like, people would want to hear us sing together. I said,
fabulous.
maybe it should be like, you did this. He goes, I'm not writing that crap. And he wrote this beautiful, truly uplifting song about, I'm just happy to be here and now. And we made this great video. You all have to check this out. Made a great video where she lives in Oregon. I'm in New York. I'm walking on the street, singing the choruses now, the verses. The choruses. But the verses are talking about, what was. And we used a lot of archival stuff from our performing back in the day. So it's a very cool video, and it's a fabulous song.
Well, besides your voices that would draw us to the record, I love the description that would make me buy it with sight unseen. Vintage jukebox Americana. I mean, who doesn't love that?
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
I've got to say, she should be proud. I listen to it nonstop in my car, which is the way I love to listen to music, the most. But it is such a, here she is. I'm not naming numbers, Foley, but we're older babes.
Yeah.
And she just kicks ass on this record. It's a wonderful record. Paul Foglino, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah.
Incredible job of songwriting. And it's just, here she is. And she got all these kudos.
Karla, when you got that call, were you like, are you serious? Is it?
No, because we had already, we had done the Steinman event. And then we also, with Paul Crook, went to Nashville in 2016 to record on Braver Than We Are, which was a Steinman song. It was called, there's so many titles. There's 6 parts of it.
What was it called, Paul?
Paul, what is it, Paul?
Yeah, Braver Than We Are. It's just Braver Than We Are. Yeah.
Okay. The song we sang on, it was like a trio with Meat. And it was really exciting to just go back and do that. And, we both kicked butt in the studio. And Paul, you were amazing. You working with Meatloaf. Me seeing you with Meatloaf. you're like the ultimate in calm, and Meat was very focused with you. He felt, it was like, really, it was fabulous. So we had a riot doing
recording with Meatloaf in 2016 was quite a different experience than recording with him in 1977. He was pretty chill, it's like
mellow,
huh? He wasn't stomping around with his shirt and no pants on, nothing like that.
Well, he was when you weren't there.
He was.
Well, it was at his house.
He wasn't walking.
Well, yeah.
He wasn't walking.
We rented a house in Nashville.
Doors.
It was somebody's nice house. Yes.
Yeah.
You guys, does anybody have any insight, either back in the day or later in his career, on the whole Rocky Horror thing? Was he happy he did it? Was he kind of proud of it till the end?
Why not?
Yeah,
absolutely.
We were in Philadelphia on tour, and he and I went to the theater to see it. He had never seen it, and there were like 3 people in the audience. And it's obviously it's like Bat Out of Hell. It's something that lives forever. People still love it and go to the movies and sing to it. And he had done it, on stage too. He had done the stage production.
Oh yeah, that's right. He was on Broadway with that.
Yeah,
I saw it
You saw him on Broadway?
Yeah,
I saw him on Broadway in the Rocky Horror Show.
Wow.
Before I ever
got involved with him?
Karla,
before I ever met him. No,
Yeah.
that was the only reason why it kind of rung a little bell when I think it was Moogie Klingman came to me and said, would you
Meatloaf.
Moogie, yeah.
yeah.
Well, Moogie Klingman essentially introduced me to Meatloaf and the entourage, and this was under some sort of arrangement where, like I was so busy with productions. I was doing a lot of records then. And he wanted to get into production. So he said, if I come to you with something, and you decide to do it, I'll do all the grunt work and stuff like that. And then I'll get a co-producer credit. Well, apparently that wasn't the understanding that he had with Meatloaf. Meatloaf only wanted an introduction to me, and he didn't want Moogie involved. So Moogie was there all through rehearsals, and right before we got to the record, Simon comes to me and says, "Can you fire this guy? We don't want him involved in the record, And we had to essentially, I had to essentially, even before the record was made, I had to work out a deal to buy him out of the record before the record had even been made.
That was just the beginning of the drama and the personnel and the.
There's a lot of drama.
Yeah.
Did you know the Rocky for the buyout opened for us? Karla?
Well, melodrama.
It's
a melodrama.
Melodrama.
The whole Meatloaf story has melodrama in the end.
I thought one of the most interesting statements by anybody, it can be, arguably Clive Davis, one of the biggest geniuses in music producing, and that can go so many different directions
as well.
Yeah, well, like I said, there's absolutely go, and not the good crook like Paul. But that could be stated. But I thought one of the most interesting statements made by this big person of music producing when he passed on the project, when he said that actors don't make records. So he didn't want nothing to do with Meatloaf.
Yeah,
there you go.
There was prejudice. I think actually Linda Ronstadt changed that when she started on Broadway, because that was the first time they started going, oh, there could be a connection or whatever. So
you took over for her, didn't you?
I took over. Yeah. That's actually why I'm not.
But she made records first. She started out making records.
Exactly, but it was like a reverse prejudice for Broadway at that time. So in other words, if you were a recording artist, you can't be a Broadway star, darling. So I think that was part of it back then. But yeah. So yeah.
Do we know if there's any
whatever?
Do we know if there's any possibility of any new Meatloaf music hanging around somewhere that may come out? Do we know anything?
Paul Crook.
Yeah, Paul would know.
No, there's nothing.
No.
We have. I have a bunch of board mixes, multi-track board mixes, going back to the late '80s. that Meat wanted me to mix down and release. And there's also the Bat Out of Hell demos that Ellen is on, obviously. I think it's Ellen. You could probably know. I think it's you, Steve, Rory Dodd, and Meat on these demos that were live to tape.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Bat Out of Hell demos. Yeah.
Cool.
I'd love to hear those.
Yeah, I cleaned them up for Meatloaf, and they were, but there was some kind of obviously some legal issues between Meatloaf and the Steinman estate, Sonnenberg. So there's some gray area there to where I don't know if these demos will ever reach the public. I don't know if they ever will.
Yeah,
but we can only hope, at least pieces.
Yeah, but the board mixes, I do plan on doing that, and I will deliver them to Meat's estate for their
great.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, please. Yeah,
who knows what could happen?
Yeah.
So,
hey, I have a question though, please. I have one question, please, for Todd and Kasim. For some reason, am I correct in thinking that Willie Wilcox played drums on 2 out of 3?
Yeah, he did. No,
he did. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, we tried 3 drummers. Max couldn't play it slow enough. Yeah. Then Andy Newmark came in.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Andy Newmark did a version of it, and he couldn't play it slow enough either. And Willie's on the record.
Right on. And Todd also on Paradise. You're not playing guitar in that, huh? The rhythm guitar, is that correct?
I think it might be. Is it a steel guitar?
The drop D guitar. There's a drop D on there.
I can't say that I remember clearly. I know that there is some steel guitar, and I think that it might be Rick Derringer.
Oh, wow!
Wow!
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Huh.
Maybe, I'm just saying a maybe, but Rick Derringer was the only guy that I knew that played steel guitar at the time. So
there were no other guitar players in the session with you?
Nope.
Wow. Okay. All right.
It's true genius. Now, we're obviously, winding down on the hour here, but I cannot let you guys go without a final moment that you could share with us, a wonderful moment on the road, personal moment, as personal as you'd like to make it, or a great memory between you and Meat. I'm going to start with you, Kaz.
Oh God.
Meatloaf. We were in England. I think it was during
Sob Sister here.
There you go.
I'm at Sob Sister.
We were doing Wembley. I think we were playing like multiple nights at Wembley Arena or something. Meat got a little sick, and everybody here knows that he's really a big baby at heart. He's just a big
adorable.
Baby. And he took a tremendous amount of over-the-counter cold medicine. Like paracetamol and Benadryl and Sudafed, and he just kept taking things to try to make himself not be sick. And he took so many that he couldn't get out of bed. And he called me in my room. He said, Kazzy, I don't feel good. Can you come over here?
Oh, my gosh.
And I went over, and I kind of sat on the bed with him. And I said, well, what did you take, Meat? Well, I took this and this and this and this. And I said, Meat, what are you doing? You can't do that. You can't. You're like, you're drinking like Tylenol, Alka-Seltzer Cold Plus, and on top of that Benadryl. It was just really touching because it was always, for Meatloaf, it's always about the show. It's always about the show. He really was just about the performance.
Devoted.
And and just get, and he didn't want to feel bad because we had a show the next day or something like that.
Sure.
So that's my sad Meatloaf story.
How about you, Bruce?
Well, I got to admit that, Meatloaf did things in extreme. Okay. There's no doubt. And I can never forget one time, our rider was not really elaborate, even though, of course, all the promoters wanted to give us meatloaf cakes and meatloaf backstage, Karla knows, with the cream cheese icing on top, which was disgusting. But I remember there would be a bag of Oreo cookies, there's 2 dark chocolates with the cream filling, right? And Bob and I, we like chocolate. We were looking forward to it after sound check, and we went backstage, and the bag is empty, totally empty. Okay.
Oh man.
And then we see Meat coming down the hall, and we go, Meat, what happened to the cookies? And he goes, I don't know. and his teeth were black. He ate the entire bag of Oreo cookies. Okay. And you got to love him, though. But, it's like what you said. But as soon as you started talking about all the cold medicines and everything he took to the 10th degree, it made me think of the cookie story, that my brother and I had. But he really, I was very, very fortunate, even though it was quite a few years back. But, and Kasim, you've done the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, with Fishoff and some of, Vinny, of course. He was a special guest at one of them, and he was incredible. Wow. Because when he went from room to room to listen to the band, I actually captured some of it on video working with my band, and how everything that he thought about, all the tips that he wanted to share was much more from the performing side of things than so much the musical. Okay. And that's how I think he embodied himself. He was this giant of a performer. And that's why you can't take your eyes off of him whenever he, was on stage. And that's the legacy, and that's why he's looking very, very, famous forever now with his passing. But wow, every press thing I've seen from him, it's just, it blows my mind that I worked with him for a year. It really, really is something I'm quite proud of, and I still keep in touch with quite a few of those members of the band. And it's how I got to meet you, Todd, which I was thrilled about at a young age, even though I worked with you at one of the corporate camps for David. Remember, I met you there too. So it's been really emotional for me on many levels. But again, I've been trying to stay positive about the whole thing and look at the, how many people are celebrating his music and what he left behind, his legacy.
Absolutely. Paul, how about you?
In 2011, I reached out to Meatloaf because Steve Popovich had passed away, and his family had asked me to. They wanted him to speak at his funeral, and I hadn't talked to Meat in years. And I called him like 3 times. And he's like, "Okay, Karla, I'm gonna try." And I said to the Popoviches, "I'm not sure if it's gonna happen or not." He said he wants to. I know he wants to because Steve did so much for his career. So he showed up. He was phenomenal. So I can't really think about him in a historical kind of position. I just think of him as the guy I was just talking to in September, October, November. He was talking to me. I don't know what was real or not, but Paul, he was talking about going on tour. He asked me if I'd go on tour with him. He was talking through, he said he's going to record some things, but his voice is better than ever. He actually sounded, I thought, pretty great on a thing that Paul did with him with, the Huckabee show, which I would never normally watch, but the guy interviewed him. It was like a 10-minute great interview. Meat was hilarious. And then he went and he actually sang well. And there was like a great band together and like 6 singers. I mean, it really supported him. And I thought, oh, he could do this, and he loved my husband's music. There was a song my husband wrote that he, for 2 years, held on to. So it was called, I can't even remember the title right now, but Francis, his assistant, actually texted me and said, "Could you please get it for me?" Because that was the only song Meat said made him cry every time he heard it, like Left in the Dark. So I feel really, I have a very emotional feeling. And then I was lucky enough that Paul had given Pearl and Amanda the info to contact me. I spoke to him into his ear. Robbie and I did the day he died. So it was like, I really haven't talked about it since, I couldn't. But
there had to be a moment. I mean, you're the one on stage that's eye to eye with him a couple times.
Well, if you talk past, there's always moments. He hip checked me off the stage during Paradise in Melbourne. I landed like 10 feet down on the guy in the first row's lap. It was a giant theater situation. I did not get hurt. And the great thing is he held character, and so did I. He reached down, he goes, "What are you doing down there? Get up." And he like reached down and pulled me up on the stage. I mean, so that might be one of them. But also him during Paradise, I never knew that he threw a mic stand over my head every night when I was bent down. So I'm bent down, and one night I just go, I think I'll get up a little early. It almost hit me in the head. And the band members, nobody told me, whatever, that happened. So I'm like, yeah, really, Bruce, you're in trouble.
That's funny.
And one last thing, quick. The live band was amazing. Joe Stepko on drums, Steve Buslow on bass, the two Kulicks, outrageous, and Steinman playing. I mean, and Paul Glanz, he played keyboards. He played the second. He was really wonderful.
The whole band was incredible.
It was pretty incredible. It was a great lesson and a life lesson for me. Watching the whole thing explode from, hole in the wall clubs to these giant stadiums. It was insane. And I learned a lot of things that I wouldn't do if I ever became that famous, which I didn't.
How about you, Paul? What is your memory? Give me a memory of Meat you're gonna take to your grave.
The most recent sitting by him at the hospital in Nashville. I bent down to kiss him, tell him I love him, and he kissed me on the cheek. And then I said to him, hey boss, I called him boss. I never called him Meat. I said, hey boss, you're 1 in 8 billion. And he looked at me, very, very weak. And he went like this. He went like this. Like that. You gave me the finger. And that's it. It's the greatest thing.
I love that.
It's the greatest.
That's
a
great.
kiss and a finger. There you go.
How about you, Ellen?
This is so hard. I just keep thinking about those times where we met Todd in NOLA Studios on 57th Street, and sitting back there. We're sitting on our little metal chairs, waiting for these music executives to march in, and he would ask me to hold his hand, and because he wasn't sure if he was good enough or if this was good enough. And when I think back on it, it felt like, well, I did that part. I got up there and sing, but hopefully, holding his hand, because people ask me about me, what he was like. I said, I think he was a lonely kid always. His mom died. He felt sort of deserted. So, he really looked to, I think, women friends, mainly, largely, to give him the support that he needed and the love. And I just think of moments like that.
Todd, how about you, buddy?
Little known fact, unless you've read my book.
There's a book?
There's a plug.
We got to read it.
Great book.
Meatloaf got married at my house.
Oh, right. Oh, my God. I remember.
Yeah. And I was there from the very beginning of his relationship with Leslie.
Right.
Leslie was Leslie Loaf. Yeah. She was the receptionist at Bearsville Records, upstate in Bearsville. And, she's quite pretty and quite stacked, and everybody, was
stacked.
Very.
Stacked.
You're showing your age, man.
I think everyone was
hubba, Todd. Hubba.
Hubba. Yeah. Okay. And I don't know, what would they say nowadays, but what would the kids say?
Nothing.
Okay.
That's the problem.
But I know you'll get in trouble. But I remember the point in which he first started making his moves on her. His move or his moves on her, we were at the Bear Cafe, not the Little Bear, the Chinese restaurant, but the one that's now closed. And he invited her over. I was there, and Meat was there at the table, and Meat and Leslie. And he presented her with a giant salmon that he had brought all the way from New York. A whole salmon, a whole smoked salmon, all wrapped up in brown paper. I don't know where he got it, which was essentially his bear-like proposal to her. Here, look, I got you. I'm
surprised he didn't have it in his mouth and it was flipping around.
I got that salmon.
Right.
And then they had the wedding at my house, which was a whole circus in itself, because it snowed. It had snowed right. It had snowed right before, that. So I lived up on a hillside. So people had a hard time just getting up to the house in the first place. That was a whole circus to start with. The pastor that they had hired to do the ceremony was like 95 years old. And he had like a retainer with him, and the retainer had to whisper everything into his ear. The entire ceremony had to whisper the entire ceremony in his ear. And he looked at me and said, "Do you, Leslie, take Marvin?"
Oh no!
The first thing he said, is, "Do you, Leslie, take Marvin to be right?" And because he got the names mixed up, and so then they finally got married. I remember the whole crew had custom jackets made, like it was a gig, like it was a special gig, in the back and stuff like that. Then the real fun began when everybody tried to get out of my driveway. You haven't seen so many like old white men trying to direct traffic, no, back up. No, you back up. It went on for an hour, everyone trying to leave after me's wedding because everything was so slushy and slippery. And that may be kind of like the last intimate moment I ever spent with Meat, because we recorded the tracks for what was supposed to be the second album.
Right.
Discovered very early on that Meat could not sing it because the abuse he had gone through promoting the first record. He had lost part of his range, and that was the last I ever worked with Meatloaf, except for sometime in the 2000s when Desmond Child was trying to revive his career, and I sang background on one of the songs. That was the very last time I saw Meat. So I can't speak as like someone who's worked with him beyond making a record or socialized with him much or anything like that. I don't have any of those kind of stories. I only have rumors that these other people have told me.
Yes, and we cleared some of them up tonight. Hey, Vinny, what do you think about this freaking crowd, this group that we had tonight?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, the stories, like Carmine said earlier, were unbelievable. I like it, the fact that just like anything in the music business, he got turned down so many times, and then sold 43 million records. It's perfect.
Yep.
Who's running the music industry?
Isn't it 45?
Or 45.
45 million now, yeah. How about you, Carmine? What do you think about this cast we had tonight?
Well, he's been watching the Olympics.
No, I'm watching Blue Oyster Cult on the screen here because they're on now. And you, Kasim, you know them, right?
Yeah. I can see them behind you.
Yeah. There they are. But anyway,
It was
an amazing. A bunch of stories, a lot of things I didn't know. But I know a lot of the people that are involved. Max and your brother Bob, and so many people, so many names. It was awesome to hear the background of this. I don't think it's ever been told like this anywhere.
Not like this. No, we got to do it. We got to do this again. But we are gonna wind down here. I got one last thing. I'm gonna go to each and every one of you. But besides, obviously, I miss you, Meat. But you had the opportunity to say one more thing to him. Karla, what would you say?
Oh boy. Just how much, I guess, looking back after losing him, it's easier to think of something. How much I appreciate his enthusiasm, his kind of adorable insanity. I mean, the power that he threw into everything. I just really appreciate seeing that intensity and the big heart that he had, even among all of that. So I guess that's it.
How about you, Bruce? What would you say to him?
Well, I want to thank him for he had nicknames for my brother and I live, and it was Killer for my brother and Pretty Boy for me, and I kind of really did like that,
Yes.
But I'd also tell him I really realize now with his passing how much respect and love I really had for him as a person, not only as a performer. And even though he drove me pretty crazy during the tour, because he was out of control and he was the 800-pound gorilla, you know, as Meatloaf, and Karla knows. But I wish we could have had one more chance to do it again, even if it was just a show, you know. I really do regret that. And one last thing I wanted to mention, a buddy of mine in the industry actually bought a cameo from him back in late 2020 for me. So Meatloaf, you know, cameos, if you do 3 to 5 minutes, that's like, woohoo, because some of them are 1 minute long, you know, those, you know, celebrity shout outs. And he did 45 minutes. Okay. And he's been known for doing long ones, because I've heard other people tell me that. But for 45 minutes, he just sat there. My wife and I watched, and I was fascinated, of course, because the missing part is that there's no conversation like what we're having, of course. But he went on some stories about the road, Karla, some stories about my brother. Wow. It was very touching. And I was just totally blown away by it. And it was like, I didn't even know how to like kind of digest it, you know. So I would tell Meat that I really miss him and love him. And thanks for the, you know, thanks for those memories. Thanks for that opportunity to do that tour.
Paul, how about you?
Yeah, same as Bruce. I think I would say to my boss is I'm internally grateful. He taught me so much about the stage and about the business too. I learned so much about the business through him, and I'm grateful. I said, boss, I love you. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Ellen, how about you?
I would say,
what would you say to Meat?
I would say, thank you, Meat. That was the first record I ever sang on. And because of you, here I am sitting, talking to all these wonderful people.
Yeah.
That's
really
true.
Nice.
Kaz?
Yeah, I would just say thanks. I really appreciated the time that I got to work with him live and on records. So just a big thank you.
And Todd, what do you think? What would you say to Meatloaf if you had one more chance?
Well, with the benefit of hindsight, you know, and as I say, I didn't have the kind of relationship that a lot of these other people had with him. I only, you know, was purely professional, more or less. But I would have said, as we started that second record, slow the hell down.
Yes. Yes.
Just slow down, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Life is brief, art is long, you know.
Right.
Just take it easy for a while. You've done a whole lot already.
Yeah.
Just, you know, try not to beat yourself to death through the rest of it. And I think that, you know, he would have been, if he had taken it seriously, maybe wouldn't have lost his voice so much, you know, the thing that made him what he was, you know, that, you know, he would have taken better care of himself and might still be here today. Who knows?
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, February 24th out here in Des Plaines, we're going to have the Neverland Express Band with Caleb Johnson from American Idol, I believe. And, you know, the band is all members who played, obviously yourself, who play with Meatloaf. What can the crowd expect from that show? We
do the entire Bat Out of Hell album, play the whole thing all the way through. And then we do, then we do choice of the popular songs of Bat Out of Hell too that we all know. And that takes us to 90 minutes, you know, right there. I mean, only 7 songs at a bat, you know, and then 3 out of bat 2, and you're at 90 minutes. You know, that's incredible, man. Well, you know, we all thank, obviously, you know, Meatloaf for what he's given to all of us, but truly from all of us fans, guys, thank you folks for giving us the recorded material, the live tours, the memories, the product that you put out that's going to allow us, that's going to, as Todd put it so well, how life is short and art is long. Well, the art of all of you will live through Meatloaf's music, and thank you guys for being with us tonight and for what you've given all of us.
I have one
question.
Thank you.
I have a question, please.
Thanks.
Can I get a question? One question, please, for Bruce?
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce, I love you. I'm a massive Kiss fan. You know this, buddy.
Oh, thank you.
But my question, please, where is that Mockingbird?
I have one similar to one of the ones that we worked. But Bob and I love the BC Rich guitars, and you know, that was very hip then too. You know, so but I don't actually have the one that you know from the tour, you know, but Bob and I had some cool guitars back then. I know that.
Okay. And Todd, please. What about Greenie? Where did Greenie come from?
What? Oh, you mean foamy?
Yeah, excuse me. Sorry, foamy.
Foamy.
Yes,
yeah, it's a particular shade of green.
Yes, yes.
Foamy. There were the halcyon days in the late 80s when the Japanese were like the richest people in the world. And so everything else in the world was really cheap for them. And I could take my 11-piece band to Japan, you know, like once a year to go play. And they were so rich that all the Japanese companies, they would just give you stuff, you know, just so you would take a picture with it or something like that. And we used to get guitars, you know, half a dozen guitars. Every guitar company would come to the gig and give you a guitar just so they could take a picture with it. And they sort of started piling up in a storage space that I had. And one day I decided to go through them all. And this one guitar, this Fernandez guitar, essentially Fernandez, which was Fender licensed a Japanese company to make Fender knockoffs. And so they had they all looked like Fender guitars. And it was a Fernandez. And I played it and it sounded better than the rest of them. And it played easier than the rest of them. And it just became my axe, and I'm too lazy to find another one.
That's awesome.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
There you go.
Oh, and I have one little last question. Karla,
Yeah,
you live in Oregon?
Yes, I do. On the
Where in
Mackenzie
Oregon?
River. On the Mackenzie River.
That's
Leesburg
pretty
is
vague.
Really... Okay.
That's a big
It's
house.
You live in a raft?
Yes, really. Watch Ellen's video. You'll see.
No, my youngest lives in Portland, and so I'm always going through Portland. So if it's near there.
Please. Yes, it's like 2 hours south of there. Come visit.
Right.
We have room, please.
Okay, cool.
I get to say something.
I'm not going there. You have to go to Portland.
Damn it. Okay.
You're not going to get that knock on the door.
Thanks, everybody.
I got to say one last thing. My first buy Ellen Foley's record. It's so friggin' brilliant. Okay, it's fabulous. Fighting words, and she kicks butt. And the other thing is, my son sends me a video on the phone, and he goes, "Mom, this is my new theme song for life," and it was "Bang on the Drum," and it was a video. It was a live video that I sang on with Flo and Eddie saying background.
Yes.
Wow.
God, that short little show.
I thought
you remember.
What? It was incredible.
That was Boy George's American video premiere as well.
Oh my God! I didn't even know that.
Oh wow!
But my son, I thought he said it.
And with that,
Todd, we look forward to seeing you. You're coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks, Ron. Bye, guys. Bye, Karla.
Bye, guys. Bye, everybody. Bye.
What an exciting show this was tonight. We're looking. I'm looking forward. Let's see here. So on March 10th, we've got Kasim Sulton and his Utopia show coming out by us. Of course, on June 18th, we got Carmine and Cactus coming. We're very excited about that. April 16th, we got Last in Line and Vinny. I know we're working on the 50 Years Ago Today project that Todd Rundgren and Christopher Cross and all those guys are coming out. So we're looking forward to that. And then, of course, the Bat Show, which is a celebration of the life and music of Meatloaf on February 24th. So once again, it's been a chock full show, chock full of legends and icons and stories, behind the scenes experiences right here in Artists on Lockdown, Hangin' and Bangin'. Want to thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you hit the podcast. Make sure you hit our Facebook page and everything else. Keep it going. Like our page, share it. Let everyone know that this is the place to be every Thursday night. We're at 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock on the West Coast. Once again, thank you guys all so much for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you each and every Thursday here on Hangin' and Bangin'. Rock and roll, guys.
Kasim, I love you. Thank you. Thank you for calling, Kaz.
Bye, guys.
Hey, it's Vinny Appleseed here, and I want you to tune in to Hangin' and Banging on February 17th with our special guest, the legendary Bill Ludwig III from the Ludwig Drum Company. He's got some great stories.